Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Tosh Customs, and today we'll be looking at my custom Marvel Legends Daken figure. As always, we'll start with accessories first, which isn't very many for this guy. Daken isn't really a character who needs weapons, and so he doesn't have much. So the first thing we'll look at is this custom Wolverine head sculpt. So let's get to focus. So this one was actually a pretty interesting head sculpt to make. I pulled the base head off of the vintage Wolverine so that he had the very classic mask head sculpt. Unlike the Wolverine, like 3-pack one, the love triangle one, where he has like the pointed ears, didn't want to go for that look. So I didn't want to use this angry head. So instead, I went for the classic head since we're making a dark Wolverine. But I had to get the angry mouth on there. So what I had to do is I actually cut out the original calm mouth, if you guys are familiar with it, and then I took the snarling Wolverine mouth from his unmasked head, cut it out, pasted it in there, and sculpted and smoothed it out. So as you can see, it turned out really well. I'm very happy with it, and obviously everything is all repainted. So that's that. We'll come to his other head now, which is his Daken head. This, as I rotate it around, this is just based off of the... maybe I can raise my camera a little bit. This is based off of the Bullseye unmasked head, so that's where we get this screaming head from. The Mohawk is from a Storm figure. I got it as a head cast, so I don't know which figure it is specifically, but I think it was a Toy Biz Storm, and then obviously repainted. I also sculpted the eyebrows since the Bullseye doesn't have sculpted eyebrows, and so if we zoom in, that just gives it a little bit more texture to it, if you can see it. Alrighty, so zooming back out now. The other thing, obviously, we have his mask to pull back. That's not anything new, just repainted it. Boom, it sits on there nicely. I did have to warm it up and just mold it a little bit more to the Daken body, just because otherwise it sits a little too tight, a little too snug, and it kind of like tucks up on the neck rather than sits nice and flat. So that's that. Getting to the body, articulation's all the same. Obviously, some stuff is sanded down so that there's no paint rub. I'm not going to go through all the articulation and move all the joints, not because I'm afraid of paint rub, but because it takes too much time. It's standard. If you're familiar with the Bullseye figure, the New Vision, the Sunfire, what else? You know, any of those figures, Living Laser, it's all this up. It's just all the updated butterfly jointed body. Shang-Chi, the new Shang-Chi, all that kind of stuff. So anyways, getting on to how I made this guy. I actually recently found out about this other customizer named Weapon X Customs. I don't follow him, and so I actually didn't know that he was making a Daken at the time when I started making this guy. I found out later that he had also made a Daken, so whenever I post this, I just want to note I'm not copying him. I'm not trying to steal his thunder, nothing like that. It just happened to be that way. So I won't do any comparisons between the work he did and I did. I'll just explain what I did instead. So first thing is, like, as far as the construction goes, is the boots. To make this guy proportional, like body wise, I had to pull the boots off of like the normal Wolverine figure, but the upper leg here below the knee, that is actually still the standard legs for this buck. So I actually had to chop off half of the leg and then with sculpt fit everything and smooth everything together, because I'm going to bring this other Wolverine back in. Let me kind of like straighten him up so he can stand. Straighten everything up. There we go. So if we do a little size comparison, starting at the knee, you'll notice that like knee to knee, you'll notice that this leg is significantly shorter. There we go, knee to knee. You'll see it's significantly shorter. So what that means then is if you just replace this Wolverine's leg right below the knee onto this body, it'll be too short, which makes him look like he has ape arms or something. Like his arms are way too long and his thighs are way too long for the rest of the leg that you have. So I had to do that whole fusing process, which means obviously you get no articulation under the boot, but he stands proportionally, and so he doesn't look like all his, the rest of his body is kind of like too long or all scrunched together. So we got that. Um, as far as other sculpting work, I sculpted this line that sits at the edge of the suit. And for me, that just makes it easier for me to paint. It's not very noticeable, but you can see it there. We just get that corner edge. We just get that corner edge there. And that just allows me to know where my yellow stops and my brown starts. I think it also works for the figure just because he is wearing a suit. So he's going to have different, different fabrics, different stitching. So it doesn't seem too bad to have a border right there. Sculpted in some little crease lines in the pant legs. And then the tattoos are actually sculpted too. It's sculpted. Let me see if I can zoom in. Let me see if I can get you guys an edge. Yeah, you can kind of see it on the inside of there. And if I move his arm out, you can see it. Focus. Yeah, there you go. You can see the layer right up there. It's like paper thin. Super, super thin sculpting. But I sculpted the tattoos, and the tattoos wrap all the way around and on the inside of the arm too. And I sculpted them because I simply just don't trust myself to try to paint black tattoos on a skin tone without messing up. Skin tone is hard to mix and paint to make it look, very realistic and very lifelike. So I wasn't gonna, play my hand and mess it up and have to repaint the skin tone on the whole figure. So sculpted the tattoos in. The belt here is from the vintage Wolverine figure. Obviously, we're making a dark Wolverine. He has that vintage suit on. The only thing is I added a little bit of elastic in the back, and I know it doesn't keep all the red together, which I'm a little bit bummed about. But what I like about that is I get to keep all my waist swivel back and forth and all that kind of stuff without this belt being too tight. Like Marvel Legends figures, when they have just a full plastic belt, they either, let me get him to stand. There you go. You guys can stare at him. There we go. So the reason why I don't like fully plastic belts is that if you want the waist articulation to work, you got to push the belt up onto the stomach, and it doesn't look normal. Like that looks way too high for a belt. So, because when the figure's being displayed, the belt's usually pushed down just a tad. And it's like, oh, okay, see, now you're seeing the bottom, now you're seeing the bottom half of his torso a little bit. But if I want to move it, you see it has to slide up. So, to kind of counter that, having the belt on elastic, lets me, it still tucks up a little bit. But if it stretches, there we go, lets me turn without compromising where the belt sits. So that's just a little added feature, just my own personal preference. I just realized I don't have the hand on me. We'll move on without it. It's okay. So centering this guy back up again, we're gonna get to the hands now. And there's a couple cool things that I've done here. The first is obviously he has his black bone claws. Some of you are probably gonna have questions about that. I did extensive research and I looked into a lot of the comics, and it turns out he actually does have black claws. Some people choose to, some artists still choose to draw them as bone, but if you read his original bio, his claws are black. And in most of the art, his claws are black too. Sadly, half the time he's like standing in a shadowed area, so it's hard to tell, but they are black. So that's why they're there like that. A thing I should note too is that I realize I don't have them on me, but the hands so the bone claws only come with this version of Wolverine from the 3-pack. And the hands for the bone claws are significantly bigger than these. And I apologize for not having them on me. I can't edit anything in. I hate editing. Take my word for it, I guess. My apologies. Maybe I'll throw a size comparison in on my Instagram or something. Point being, they're larger than these hands. And the construction of them is interesting because while these hands are a peg, so, or like a little divot so that you can pop the claws out and they just slide back into that peg hole right there. The bone claws are actually a totally different piece. So the metallic knuckle and the bone claw are all one piece, and it's actually a tab that just tabs into the top of the hand. So on top of having like gorilla hands for the bone claws, which I assume is just like an artist thing, since Wolverine bone claws, he's kind of mad and all beefed out. So I assume that's what it's for. But on top of that, obviously the bone claws don't interchange with these hands. So if you've seen my work in progress photos, you know I'm using the brown version of these normal hands. So then, well, how do you get bone claws to sit on normal, more proportionally sized hands? Well, it's simple. You cut them out. This was probably the most tedious part of the entire custom. So I had to cut off the knuckle part. If it'll focus, I had to cut off the knuckle part, like the knuckle metal. And then after that, I had to put a focus camera, focus. And then I had to put the silver claw over the bone claw and pretty much cut it to match the end, the little bony end there. Cut it to match the end so that it will fit inside. And so now they just tab in like so, and they look all normal. And I shake the figure around. They're not loose, they're not falling out. You can wiggle them, push them out. They're not falling out. So if you do that, if you want to make it for yourself, they'll fit in nicely and nothing will happen. So really the only other thing, I'm not going to talk about paint. It's whatever. Every artist paints the way they want to paint. I did mine gray and brown and then yellow and orange. But it's all entirely up to you. But the really cool thing I want to talk about is his third claw. So and third claw piece right there, and I'll install those in a sec. But what I did was, let me turn his arms out there. Cool. So what I did to get that was I drilled into the hand. I had to kind of like guess where the hand actually stopped because I didn't want to drill into the arm peg and make these hands looser. So I kind of eyeballed it, kind of figured out like, if the peg is so and so long, it'll probably fit about this deep. And so then I drilled into the hand from there, got it right, luckily. And then I put some clay, I used Procreate. So I put some Procreate in there. And once that was filled with Procreate, I took the metal claw and I just put it in. And then I just kind of shaved away and smoothed the excess that kind of got pushed out when I made that new hole. So once again, we'll do that little fix test to prove it works. Boom, we push on it, we push on it, push on it, push on it. It doesn't fall out. So come into this one, same thing. We take our tab and we just plug it in. Oop. There we go. Ooh, you heard the snap on that one, I think. See, tight fit. Boom. So now he has his bone claws. I smoothed out the edges of the bone claw, or I guess his metal claws. I smoothed out the edge of his metal claws because otherwise they have this really hard angle. And let me pull that other Wolverine back in to show you. Here, I'll just pull the claw off. There we go. So the claw is supposed to fit into the fist. Focus. Fist, I think I have too much light. Maybe. Fist, there we go. So you can see it has that hard angle there. The issue with the hard angle is it doesn't make sense for it to come out of his wrist with a hard angle because that's not how bones work. So I smooth out the edge there so it has this nice curve to it and it just comes out of the hand. I did also kind of sand down the interior of the claw. You can kind of see it. There's a little bit more of a curve in there. And that was just to, first of all, make it a little bit more streamlined. I always see Daken as like the faster, sleeker version of Wolverine. So I kind of thinned those claws out from the more blocky version that we get with the Marvel Legends. And that also lets him have a little bit more room for him to kind of like tuck his fist in, so that when he's punching and slashing, it makes more sense. So you get the function of having all three claws on there, which is something neither a customizer nor Hasbro, I guess, nor Toy Company has done yet. So that's pretty exciting, and I really like that. So it was a fun feature to add, and I'm really glad it worked out, because if it didn't, I just would have had to fill in holes in the arms, and that's too bad. There's little sculpting details, like the gloves are sculpted. There's just a little bit of a difference there. And I'll be honest, all those types of things are just to help me paint. Really, that's half the reason why I sculpt, because I don't trust myself when I'm either spraying and or hand painting to get all the edges really clean or symmetrical. So sculpting just those little, paper thin edges are a really nice touch. Yeah, other than that, that's about it. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more insight into how I made this figure. And if you want to make it in the future, maybe this can give you some inspiration. So thank you all for watching my review. If you want to, please like, comment, and subscribe. I always love hearing your feedback, and I always appreciate your support. If you want to get more regular content, regular-ish content, I should say, follow me on Instagram at Tosh_customs. I post a lot more there than I post reviews on YouTube. So if you want to see all my work in progress photos and like see what Daken looked like before he was this, definitely give me a follow online. All right. Thank you again, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care.